Chapter 33. Sending her a magical beast. As a bodyguard, was this why he was so good to her? People like him were like the sun in the clouds, or like the bright moon on a winter night. They were simply unapproachable. No one in the world could arouse his sympathy, but he had helped her twice. If that was the case, she believed it. There was no need to ask about that person's whereabouts. Beiting Huang's fingertip moved. She didn't like to see Yanye's furrowed brows that were like an insurmountable mountain. Yanye glanced at her hand from the corner of his eye. She hesitated for a moment, but still raised her hand and touched Yanye's shoulder. I don't know how to comfort people, but I heard that everyone is a star in the sky. If you care about someone, no matter where they are, you can see them. If that's the case, this person can see that you're unhappy. If you're unhappy, she'll be unhappy too. Would she? Would she see his unhappiness? Regardless, at least at this moment, there was someone who was unhappy with him. Yanye gave a rare, gentle smile. The smile in his eyes was like seeing the new light of the new sun. The ground melted, the mountains and rivers thawed, and flowers bloomed in spring. Only then did Beiting Huang heave a sigh of relief. She walked to the chair beside him and sat down. It seems like you've already obtained your mercenary qualifications. I've issued an A-rank mission this time. If the mission succeeds, you'll immediately have the experience of participating in an A-rank mission. Yanye accompanied her to drink tea. A-ranked missions. Mercenary groups usually took on S-ranked missions. A-ranked missions were followed by B-ranked missions. S-ranked missions were the most difficult. Beiting Huang did not know if there were any S-ranked missions issued on the continent, but at least in the past 100 years, no force had issued an A-ranked mission. No wonder so many mercenary groups came at once. As long as they accepted an A-ranked mission, they could jump to the A-ranked mercenary group. They would pay a much lower fee in the mercenary guild and be assigned a lot more resources. The Snow Wolf Mercenary Group was the #1 mercenary group on the continent because the Snow Wolf Mercenary Group was the only A-rank mercenary group on the continent. I heard that you were looking for an egg. What kind of egg is it? How did it get stolen? Beiting Huang was puzzled. What kind of magical beast dared to steal an egg from the Night Manor? What kind of egg is it? I'll show you when I find it. When Yanye wasn't smiling, his face was especially cold. However, once he softened, Beiting Huang felt that he wasn't that scary. It always made her forget how powerful he was. I look for it without knowing. She knew very little about this continent. The previous owner's life was especially difficult. How could she have the time to learn? Moreover, her trash physique meant that she was destined not to have any opportunities to learn. That's a magical beast egg. I originally wanted to give it to you as a contract beast, but even I can't tame that egg. Speaking of this, Yanye simply said, When I find that egg, I'll give you the holy beast that stole the egg as a contracted beast. She was not a spiritual master, so how could she take in a contracted beast? She shook her head. No need. I don't need a contracted beast. Yanye looked at her steadily. Although he said that she looked like her, he wasn't looking at her through Beiting Huang. This made Beiting Huang feel very comfortable. Don't worry. Even if you're not a spirit master, I can still let you form a contract with a magical beast. Although you can't open the demonic beast space, it can still be your bodyguard. Chapter 34. Hall of Judgment. He wasn't a spirit master, and there was no record of someone like him being able to form a contract with a magical beast in the central continent. Beiting Huang couldn't help but become more and more curious about Yanye's ability. She remembered that the imperial family of the Raya Empire didn't have the surname Yan, but Xuanyuan. Although Yanye was the third prince of the Raya Empire, she had never heard about his biological mother. Moreover, the emperor of the Raya Empire doted on him so much that he didn't have to bow when he saw the emperor. It was said that he advanced to the heaven rank at the age of 16. Now that 6 years had passed, no one knew how strong he was. Everyone who saw him make a move had already reported to the netherworld. What kind of magical beast do you like? Before Yanya could finish, there was a commotion outside the tent. He frowned again. Zhongqi rushed in from outside. It lowered its head and glanced at Beiting Huang curiously. Master, the 3 old men from the Divine Hall of Judgment are here. Should we? Yanya raised his hand to stop Zhongqi from continuing. If Beiting Huang was not mistaken, Zhongqi wanted to ask if they should kill the 3 old men from the Divine Hall of Judgment. There were a total of 3 top factions on the continent, and one of them was the Divine Hall of Judgment. The Raya Empire was only an organization that ruled over the commoners. Although there were royalty and nobles in a world like the Central Continent where the strong were respected, royalty and nobles without strength were nothing. This was also the reason why the 4 spirit master clans could contend with the empire. During this time in the Sunset Forest, you will be my personal bodyguard. Yan Ye gave an order to Beiting Huang, stood up, and walked out. Beiting Huang obeyed Yan Ye's orders and followed him closely. This man's way of expressing his good intentions was also so awkward. A personal guard? Did she have the strength to be his personal guard? It was simply laughable, but Beiting Huang could not refuse his good intentions. She was not a pretentious person who would reject his good intentions repeatedly. She would remember his kindness to her. In the future, if he encountered any trouble, she would definitely go through fire and water for him. The 5 deacons of the Divine Hall of Judgment were all Star Spirit Masters. At this moment, they were floating in the air, accepting everyone's worship. The Divine Hall of Judgment was a very special organization in the Central Continent. They accepted everyone's faith. It was said that they were the protectors of the rules of heaven and earth. They would usually do something to help the world. Ordinary people would blindly worship them. Beiting Huang felt that the Divine Hall of Judgment was a bit like a religious organization. If the royal court enslaved a human body, some religions enslaved a human mind, and the latter was even more terrifying than the former. She had never been interested in the Divine Hall, but when she saw the 5 deacons looking at her with disdain and disgust in their eyes, Beiting Huang's eyes turned cold. These 5 old men must have looked down on her because she was not a spirit master. Since when did the Honorable Night King associate himself with a piece of trash who can't gather spirit chi? The 5 deacons were all dressed in long white robes. They hovered in the air, looking high and mighty. When Beiting Huang heard this, she became even more displeased with the so-called Divine Hall of Judgment. She snorted coldly and heard Yan Ye say, "Trash? I've heard this word too many times this time. If I were to judge by the standards of the 5 deacons, wouldn't all of you be trash wherever I look?" All he could see was trash. Arrogant. Unparalleled arrogance. Just a few minutes ago, Yan Ye himself had said that she was arrogant, but her arrogance could not compare to him at all, okay? Chapter 35, 5. Pieces of trash and a group of trash. Beiting Huang almost laughed out loud. In the sky, the 5 deacons' expressions were too strange. They were as stiff as a piece of paper and were so shocked that they couldn't move. Those who called others trash eventually became trash in the eyes of others. Was there anything more hilarious than this? She really did not expect the Night King to have such a sharp tongue. Jiangqi and the other 3 couldn't hold back their laughter. In the end, they couldn't help but burst into laughter. Beiting Huang turned around and saw that the 4 of them had their heads lowered. Their faces couldn't be seen, but their shoulders were shaking. It was obvious that they were having a hard time holding it in. "Night King, please be careful with your words." The leading deacon's face darkened. The Divine Hall of Judgment had always been worshipped by everyone on this continent, and had never suffered such humiliation. Weren't the mercenaries prostrating on the ground and kowtowing to them? The Night King reached out and pulled Beiting Huang into his arms. He carried her up into the sky. Seeing this scene, Zhongqi and the others were amazed. The Night King, who usually did not allow anyone to get within 3 feet of him, was actually carrying a young man? The Night King was already in his early 20s. The Empire had tried to choose a concubine for him many times, but he had refused. They originally thought that it was because all the noble women in the Empire were not worthy of the Night King, who was a genius. They did not expect it to be because the Night King's hobbies were more strange. It was as if he was riding on a cloud, overlooking the entire continent. The sunset forest stretched for thousands of miles, and the tall and majestic Luobei city was under his feet. This feeling was really wonderful. This was the allure of strength. He could walk in the void as he pleased. Beiting Huang was extremely excited. She didn't feel like she was in the arms of a man at all. On the contrary, she looked left and right with joy in her eyes. "Happy?" His Highness asked the little thing in his arms with a smile. "Yes, I'm happy." He did not hide his happiness at all. This was Beiting Huang. Even though the 5-star spirit masters looked down on her, Beiting Huang was not pretentious. One day, she would reach their level with her own ability. Therefore, she did not feel embarrassed. The 5 elders of the Judgment Hall ignored Beiting Huang and said, "I heard that His Highness the Night King lost an egg. The Divine Lord specially sent us to bring more than 100 spiritual masters of the Judgment Hall to help His Highness search this forest." Beiting Huang looked at the camp of the spiritual masters of the Judgment Hall, who were chasing away the mercenaries in the middle of the tent. In the name of God, they were occupying the territory that others had already occupied. The Judgment Hall was indeed arrogant. The Hall of Judgment is now the only organization that protects the rules of heaven and earth. It protects the will of God and has always been the glorious representative of God. Yan Ye's soul message sounded in Beiting Huang's mind. Even so, the image of the Divine Hall of Judgment was greatly diminished in her mind. In fact, she hated this kind of organization. She had never believed in gods. In the 21st century, Buddhism had said, "God is the future man, and man is the god of the past. Assist His Highness in finding the egg." Judging from the attitudes of these 5 people, Beiting Huang believed that the Divine Hall of Judgment was also eyeing the egg covetously. After all, the Night Manna was willing to give a tamed magical beast as a reward for the egg. The Night King chuckled. It was more like mockery. "Sir Divine Lord, I'm afraid you've underestimated me. I don't think 5 useless people can help me get that egg." Chapter 36, Full Moon Night. Was he scolding everyone from the Hall of Judgment who came here? The 5 deacons scolded Beiting Huang for being a good-for-nothing, which made the Night King scold the Divine Hall of Judgment for being trash. When the 5 deacons faced the Night King, they wished they could take off their pants and pretend to be old. Below them were the top forces of the entire Raya Empire. At this time, everyone was looking at them with envious eyes. How powerful were heaven-rank powerhouses in the eyes of these 1st and 2nd rank professionals? Of course, the Night King's words were also heard by them. This made the 5 deacons especially angry. One of them lost his cool and was about to step forward to attack, but he was stopped by another. This person could not attack, so he could only speak. "Your Highness, don't forget that tonight is a full moon night. Since it's a full moon night, it's more than enough for the Divine Lord to send 5 of us here." "Ha ha ha, is that so? Then I'll wait and see." Beiting Huang didn't know what a full moon night was, but from the sound of it, were these 5 deacons of the Divine Hall of Judgment actually taking advantage of the full moon night to attack the Night King? 5 powerful Star Soul Masters had brought more than 100 level 2 and 3 professionals, while the Night King only had a total of 5 people. No, there was also her. Although she wasn't a Soul Master, she was also a swordsman. If she couldn't deal with these heaven-level old fellows, she should have some confidence in dealing with the Soul Masters below. Yan Ye could feel the worry in Beiting Huang's heart and the boundless fighting spirit in her. For the first time, he felt a little uneasy. He tightened his grip on Beiting Huang as if he was comforting her. "Trash like you can't touch me even on a full moon night." After saying that, he couldn't be bothered to waste his breath on these people. he carried Beiting Huang back to the ground. At this time, a bright moon had already risen in the sky. As she looked over, she saw a round plate hanging in the sky. For the first time, she was amazed by how round the moon was. "Are you concerned about me?" Yan Ye asked with a smile. "If it were you, wouldn't you care about me?" Beiting Huang raised her eyebrows and asked him. Yan Ye smiled helplessly and pointed at the tent in front of him. "Go in and rest. I have something urgent to deal with and will be back very late." "Wait!" Beiting Huang grabbed his wrist and asked him anxiously. "Is it because of the full moon?" Yan Ye's eyes were a little cold. He glanced at Beiting Huang's hand that was holding his wrist. It was like a pair of steel pincers, squeezing him so hard that his bones hurt. He gently held his hand without using any strength. The young man's concern came from the bottom of his heart, making him a little happy. "I'll be fine, trust me." Beiting Huang slowly let go. She watched as he rose into the sky and disappeared in a flash. She clenched her fists tightly. She was very weak now and could not help him, but one day she would become stronger and definitely help him. Less than an hour after Yan Ye left, a bonfire was set up in the camp. Mercenary teams gathered by the fire and began to eat and drink. Just as they were enjoying the peaceful moment before the hunt, a deafening sound suddenly sounded on the ground. The ground shook as if tens of thousands of galloping horses were galloping. "Oh no, the magical beasts are attacking the city." The first to react was the young master of the first mercenary group, Qin Yu. He jumped up from the ground and looked in the direction of the sunset forest. "Snow Wolf mercenary group, quickly gather and form a formation to face the enemy." Chapter 37. Magical Beast Rampage. With Qin Yu taking the lead, the other organizations quickly responded. At this time, the differentiation between the large organizations and the small groups were especially clear. The large organizations were strong, and the quality of their personnel was higher. They dealt with the magical beasts with ease. Meanwhile, some small organizations were in a panic at this moment, and their personnel fled in different directions. They accidentally collided with the first wave of magical beasts, causing countless casualties. Yan Ye left with only 2 people. As soon as there was movement in the sunset forest, Qiangqi and Bai Zhe, who were left behind, approached Beiting Huang and stood on her left and right. Beiting Huang was about to ask them why they didn't leave with Yan Ye, but she swallowed her words when she saw them acting like guardians. "Little Ninth, let's go. It's time for us to fight side by side. Do you want to fight with me?" In the distance, Qin Yu, who had assembled his team, waved at Beiting Huang, inviting her to fight with him. Magical beasts had many treasures. It was usually very difficult to encounter so many magical beasts at once. Moreover, magical beasts all had their own territories and were not familiar with the sunset forest. They did not dare to go in and kill casually. They did not know which mountain had what types of magical beasts. If they accidentally provoked a high-level magical beast, they would not even know how they died. The magical beasts attacking the city this time were led by 3-star magical beasts, the Komodo cloud leopard. The group consisted mainly of the Tier 1 demonic star spiders, large-eyed wasps, and Tier 2 battlefield wild bulls and forest wild boars. The Komodo cloud leopard was a magical beast that specialized in speed, and its attacks were not weak either. Its golden fur with black stripes highlighted its mighty demeanor under the night breeze. It charged at the front of the team with its head held high, like a general whose murderous aura covered the sky. It locked its gaze on Beiting Huang. There was no ferocious look in its human-like golden eyes. Instead, Beiting Huang felt that it had something to say. These magical beasts were not of high levels, and they were clearly coming in groups. Beiting Huang would not miss such a good opportunity. Although she had a spatial bracelet, the space in the bracelet only opened up the area of a small hut. She had given more than 20 rubies to her fiancé. Now she had nothing. The magic nuclei of magical beasts were good for selling. The magic nuclei of a first-tier magical beast could be sold for dozens of gold coins on the market. Brother Qin, let's go together. Beiting Huang quickly ran towards Qin Yu. Qin Yu was a level 7 Great Spirit Master. He had a rare flying type level 3 spirit beast, the wide-mouthed vulture. Although it was a little ugly, its attack power and flying ability were very strong. Qin Yu raised his hand, and the white spiritual power on his body enveloped his entire body. The contract runes under his feet appeared, and a white circular pillar of light soared into the sky, connecting with the sky. A circle was cut out in the middle of the triangular formation. 7 Holy Cross light swords stood side by side, representing Qin Yu's level, a level 7 Great Spirit Master. Level 7 Great Spirit Master, did you see that? As expected of the young master of the number 1 mercenary group, such a young level 7 Great Spirit Master. Ah, Lord Qin Yu's contracted beast is a 3rd grade spirit beast. So cool. Qin Yu stood on the wide back of the wide-mouthed vulture and dove toward Beiting Huang. When he got close to Beiting Huang, he grabbed her hand and pulled her onto the vulture's back. He circled around the central tent and rushed toward the front line. Don't leave my side later! Although he knew that Beiting Huang was very strong, Qin Yu was still worried. He instructed Beiting Huang in advance. Okay. Chapter 38. Cloud Leopard Holy Beast. Although she agreed, the bloodthirsty nature of Beiting Huang's body was aroused when she saw the large-scale battle between humans and magical beasts. When the wide-mouthed vulture swooped down on the magical beasts, Beiting Huang had already jumped off the vulture's back. With a flip, she landed on the back of a bison. She held the short black blade in her hand and slashed at the side of the bison's neck. Blood gushed out, and the bison fell to the ground. Beiting Huang raised her blade and killed a bison with one slash. Instantly, it boosted everyone's morale. Such agile skills, decisive killing, and that one slash made people have no choice but to look at this thin young man again. If the prestige of the Sword Masters Guild and the intimidation of the Mercenary Guild were only indicative of a small change in the opinions of the crowd about Beiting Huang, then at this moment, looking at her agile movements, ruthless killings, and exquisite slaughter of magical beasts, everyone wondered if this young man was the famous trash of the Beiting family. If such a person was trash, then who else was qualified to be a genius? A future Star Sword Master is being treated as trash. I really don't know what the person in charge of the Beiting family is thinking. Someone shook his head and sighed. She skillfully dug out the magic nuclei from the buffalo's head. There was a black pearl the size of a baby's fist, which was surging with immense energy. A magic nucleus sold for a high price. She had already dug out dozens of them. Thinking that she could make a fortune, she was excited and full of energy. 9th young master is so cool. There was no shortage of female sword masters and spiritual masters participating in the battle this time. When they saw how graceful Beiting Huang was, they were all stunned. Some of the magical beasts were so close to them that they could not even react. If it were not for the males who fought alongside them, they might have become eaten by the magical beasts. F***C kick? Is this kid a pervert? The place where Beiting Huang landed was right in the middle of the magical beasts. In just a short while, a large group of magical beasts had fallen beside her. Qin Yu had been worried about her. When he brought his men to attack, he could not help but be stunned when he saw such a spectacular scene. 9th young master is so skilled. The members of the Snow Wolf mercenary group were not stingy with their praises and shouted sincerely, 9th young master is mighty. Good luck, 9th young master. Beiting Huang suddenly stabbed at a level 2 wild boar. She was no longer satisfied with being a level 1 magical beast. The more she killed, the more excited she became. With a slash of her dagger, the night-luminescent pearl-sized demon core fell into her bag. At this moment, a gust of strong wind swept towards Beiting Huang with a destructive force. The light of the full moon above their heads was completely blocked, and a shadow unexpectedly covered their heads. Everyone on the battlefield was stunned at this moment. A holy beast spread its huge wings and pounced on Beiting Huang. This was a two-winged cloud leopard, a third-grade holy beast that was equivalent to a human heaven rank expert. Its speed was so fast, and its aura so fierce that no one on the battlefield could block it. No one had expected such an unforeseen event to happen. Little Ninth, be careful. Qin Yu was about to go crazy. The wide-mouthed vulture was flying over, but how could its speed compare to the two-winged cloud leopard? Ah, Ninth young master! Time seemed to have stopped at this moment. The attacks of magical beasts and the resistance of humans all stopped. As the shadow in front of her grew bigger and bigger, her heart stopped beating. No matter what method she used to speed up, she could not avoid the cloud leopard. Chapter 39. We were originally companions. Bastard, stop! A sharp shout rang out. Jiangqi and Baize were like two shooting stars. They arrived before Cloud Leopard and stood in front of him. The two of them attacked at the same time. Two blue pillars of light shot towards the Cloud Leopard like cannonballs. The Cloud Leopard was fast, but Jiangqi and Baize were even faster. Their attacks were also extremely precise. The two attacks landed on the Cloud Leopard's body. The Cloud Leopard tumbled through the air and crashed into the sunset forest. This beast has quite the guts. How dare he act so impudently in front of us? Jiangqi was clearly furious. Baize looked back at Beiting Huang meaningfully. I can only say that there is someone better than you and me commanding it. If it weren't for, I wouldn't let it leave alive today. Jiangqi gritted its teeth and said fiercely, clearly unwilling to accept this. The cloud leopard fell to the ground and whimpered. It was covered in golden fur with black spots. It was originally beautiful and ostentatious, but now, after being attacked by the Jiangqi and Baize, a large part of it had been burned. It was in an especially sorry state. The emotions in its eyes were human-like. Beiting Huang saw that it was deeply afraid of Jiangqi and Baize, but when it looked at Beiting Huang, it was a little unwilling. It was wondering if Jiangqi and Baize would really take its life if it continued to attack Beiting Huang. It looked at Beiting Huang for a moment before leaving. Beiting Huang had a feeling that it led the magical beast army here because of her. After it left, Beiting Huang vaguely felt that something was pulling her. She couldn't be bothered to think about what she couldn't figure out. The appearance of the two-winged cloud leopard immediately set off a wave of excitement in the camp. Everyone became more and more wary of the Night King Manor's strength, and they were also filled with anticipation for this mission. After all, if they completed the mission, the reward would be a two-winged cloud leopard that specialized in speed and attack power. Magical beasts were ranked as first-rank magical beasts, second-rank spiritual beasts. Ranks above spiritual beasts were holy beasts, followed by divine beasts. Holy beasts were comparable to a human being, a heaven-rank expert. Obtaining a holy beast was equivalent to having a heaven-rank expert in the family. In the hands of a soul master, forming a contract would not be as simple as an additional companion. As long as it was a spirit master, who wouldn't want to get a contracted spirit beast? The strength of a contracted magical beast could increase the strength of a spirit master. The purer the bloodline of a contracted magical beast, the faster the cultivation speed of a contracted spirit master. Of course, Beiting Huang was only a sword master for the time being. She did not have much interest in this holy beast. If you want money, the Night King Mansion has plenty of money. Can you not be so scary? Jiangqi was startled and said angrily, I'll fight for what I want. Knowing that Jiangqi meant well, Beiting Huang was not angry. However, she was born cold. She nodded at Jiangqi and Baize. I'm really sorry to have frightened you. It's nothing. We're all from the Night Mansion. We're companions to begin with. Beiting Huang was not strong, but her integrity, courage, and firm belief could influence people. Jiangqi and Baize only had respect for her. It was not because of the Night King, but pure respect for warriors. After a tense battle, everyone wanted to relax after harvesting the spoils of war. The campsite was reorganized. They lit bonfires, took out bottles of fine wine, and roasted meat on the fire. Soon the fragrance filled the air. Jiangzi invited Beiting Huang. "Come, let's roast meat and drink." "All right." Beiting Huang was also very happy. She was elated to be treated as a companion by Jiangqi and Bai Zhe. She felt like she was fighting alongside her companions in her previous life. Chapter 40. Drunk Together. Jiangqi had excellent meat roasting skills. The mercenaries in the camp were all there to eat it. The meat of the wild boar in the forest was originally very fragrant, especially at the hooves. The meat was fresh and tender when roasted, and the meat was delicious and juicy. However, Jiangzi ran into the forest alone. No one knew how far he ran to catch a few ice rabbits. The rabbit's meat was a layer higher than the wild boar's. He had a lot of seasoning on hand. He sprinkled a layer of seasoning and roasted it over the fire. A different fragrance came out. "Here, have a taste of the black ale in the royal cellar." Bai Zhe threw a small container of alcohol at Beiting Huang, who took it with a wave of her hand. As soon as she opened the lid, the fragrance of the wine wafted out. She raised her head and took a big gulp. It was burning hot. As it went down her throat, she felt a burning sensation. It instantly made her feel heroic. "Good drink," Beiting Huang could not help but praise. Both Jiangzi and Bai Zhe had experienced Beiting Huang's forthright temperament. They felt that drinking with her was especially carefree. The three of them each carried a rabbit leg and held an alcohol mug in their hands. They took a sip and drank while chatting. It made Beiting Huang feel like she had returned to the days when she was with her companions in her previous life. "Ninth young master, here's to you." After the war, the entire camp had been paying attention to Beiting Huang. When they saw her sitting in the wilderness with everyone else, drinking wine and eating meat, every now and then, male and female spirit masters or sword masters would come over to toast Beiting Huang. The men were fine, but when the beautiful ladies came over, they would steal glances at Beiting Huang. He was simply intoxicating. Beiting Huang had suddenly become the lover of all the women in the camp. The young man's outstanding skills, handsome appearance, and heroic temperament were all top tier. Qin Yu came over with an alcohol mug and sat down beside Beiting Huang. He smiled at Jiangqi and Bai Zhe and said, "Sirs, do you mind if I join in the fun?" The Central Continent had always addressed Star Spirit Masters as Your Excellency. Although Jiangqi and Bai Zhe were only the guards of the Night Palace, they were both Star Spirit Masters through and through. "Of course I don't mind." Jiangqi and Bai Zhe raised their alcohol mugs at Qin Yu. The three men looked at each other and raised their heads to drink. "Count me in." Beiting Huang laughed and took a big gulp. "All right, little ninth, let's drink alone." Qin Yu put one arm around Beiting Huang's shoulder, and the alcohol mug in his hand clinked against hers. It was as if their hearts were closer. They drank to their heart's content. At the edge of the camp, someone had drunk too much and started singing. The rough and unrestrained mercenary song made Beiting Huang's eyes burn. The song rose and fell, and someone shouted, "Ninth young master, sing one!" Immediately the sky above the campsite was filled with cheers. Seeing that Beiting Huang was shouting so loudly, Beiting Hao's face darkened. He drank hard and stared at Beiting Huang with vicious eyes. He wished he could kill her right now. He hated the two-winged cloud leopard, the holy beast that led the attack. What kind of lousy holy beast can't even deal with a piece of trash? In a fit of anger, Beiting Hao had forgotten that it was Jiangqi and Bai Zhe who had stopped the two-winged cloud leopard from doing anything to Beiting Huang. "All right," she stood up, raised the wine in her hand, and toasted everyone in the camp. "I'll sing one." She looked up at the night sky, her emotions fluctuating. She thought of how in her previous life, every time she returned from a mission with her companions, she would drink and sing at the same time. Her clear voice echoed in the night sky, making people cry. "I have no intention of staying in the sandstorm. Lone desert smoke. River sunset overlooks the people of Jiangnan. Reincarnation. Fireworks. Busy as smoke, you look like a picture. The sound of swords was jarring. Thousands of cavalry and tens of thousands of horses fighting. One sword keeps the world under control. The way you turn around is so cool. I put my life on the line, but you never came to get it. I put my life on the line, but you never came to get it. Chapter 41. 41. Snowfeather Token. 41. Snowfeather Token. The moon was high in the sky. When Beiting Huang saw that Qiangqi and Baize were distracted and were constantly paying attention to the situation in the sunset forest, she became especially nervous. The two of them exchanged glances. Baize and Beiting Huang drank a cup of wine and said that they had something to do and had to leave. "Don't worry, ninth young master. Qiangqi will protect you," Baize stood up and said. Beiting Huang shook her head and said to Qiangqi, "Qiangqi, you go too. I'm here." She glanced at Qinyu. "Qinyu is my big brother. If anything happens to me, he will take care of me." She did not need anyone to protect her. She would protect herself. However, Qiangqi and Baize were still guarding her. Clearly they were under Yan Ye's orders. If she did not say that, one of them would definitely stay here. The people from the Divine Hall of Judgment had already quietly left during the magical beast siege. The 5 Sky Spirit Masters had also disappeared. It was obvious that helping the Night King's manor find the egg was an excuse to use the full moon to deal with blazing night. Qinyu quickly patted his chest and said, "No problem. Little Ninth is right. I'm her elder brother. Her life is my life." "Good. Even so, after this matter, the Night King's manor will still go to the mercenary group and issue a mission. Treat tonight's mission to protect the 9th young master as an A-rank mission. This is the reward that the Night King's manor will give the Snow Wolf mercenary group," Qiangqi said to Qinyu with a pair of blue eyes. A-rank mission. Protecting the 9th young master was the same level as finding the egg that was said to not be inferior to a holy beast. The entire camp was silent. No one dared to believe what they had just heard. Beiting Huang was only a level 7 swordsman, and there were many experts in the Night King's manor. What was the reason why the Night King's manor valued Beiting Huang so much? No one could not figure it out. Qiangqi was also puzzled, but this was Yan Ye's order. He could not disobey his master's orders. Beiting Hao gnashed his teeth in anger. Qin Yu was a level 7 Great Spirit Master and had a spirit beast of the same level. As the only A-rank mercenary group on the continent, the Snow Wolf mercenary group was naturally powerful. Even if Qiangqi and Baize left, it would not be easy for him to attack Beiting Huang. He could only wait for an opportunity slowly. He believed that the Night King's manor could protect her for a while. But could they protect her for a lifetime? This piece of trash must die. "Sir Qiangqi and Sir Baize, what is the meaning of this?" Qinyu was very unhappy. He stood up and took out a token made of black iron ore from his pocket. It was the size of a palm, and he handed it to Beiting Huang. "Little Ninth, take it." One side of the token was engraved a mighty wolf head with some complicated patterns on the edge. When they saw the token, Qiangqi and Baize's eyes could not help but narrow. The surrounding crowd immediately exclaimed, "Snowfeather token?" "Oh my god, young Master Qinyu took the snowfeather token out." Beiting Huang didn't know what this snowfeather token was, but from the expressions of the people around her, she knew that it must be something especially precious. Someone from the Snow Wolf mercenary group wanted to remind Qinyu, but he stopped him with a look. Beiting Huang was especially touched. She held the snowfeather token in her hand, and a residual warmth spread throughout her body. This man had protected her, worried about her when she was in danger, and said just now that her life was his life. If she rejected him, she would probably hurt this man's heart, right? Moreover, she had nothing now. If she fell out with her family, she would not even have a place to go. She needed these things. "Thank you." Beiting Huang held it in her hand and smiled at Qinyu. The usually cold young man smiled sincerely at this moment. His smile was even brighter and more beautiful than the moon in the sky, Not to mention the boys and girls, even the burly men were stunned. 42 heart-devouring pain. Seeing that Qin Yu had even given out the snow feather token, and that the reputation of the Snow Wolf mercenary group was well known, Zhang Qi and Bai Zi were not worried. The two of them instructed Beiting Huang, tapped their toes on the ground, and soared into the sky. When they reached the edge of the camp, a pair of wings appeared behind them. Zhangzi had wings that were as blue as the sea, while Bai Zi had wings that were as white as pearls. With a slight flap, they disappeared into the sky above the sunset forest. "Sacred beast?" Qin Yu called out softly, but he felt that it was unlikely. He shook his head. It shouldn't be. Maybe it's a contract beast. What is Brother Qin talking about? Beiting Huang sat by the fire. The light from the fire reflected on her moon-like face. Qin Yu turned around and was a little lost in thought. However, being with Beiting Huang made him feel especially comfortable. He couldn't help but sit closer to her. I was wrong just now. I thought Sir Qiangqi and Sir Baize were sacred beasts. He did not see the star pattern seal when Qiangqi and Baize summoned their magical beasts, so he thought that they were two adult sacred beasts. Sacred beasts were only things that existed in legends. He found it funny that he was making a fuss over nothing. Perhaps it was because the other party's level was too high, and the speed at which they summoned their magical beasts was too fast, so he did not see it clearly. Big brother, I don't know much about the Night King's manor. I'm employed by the Night King's manor. Can you tell me about the Night King's manor? Beiting Huang asked. Night King. Qin Yu was eager to help Beiting Huang as much as possible. Now that she took the initiative to ask, there was no need to hide anything. He told her everything. The Night King is the child adopted by the current emperor. He's the third child, but he's the favorite of the emperor. Some people say that he's from the branch family in Yan City and was chased out. I don't know if it's true, but his surname is Yan. The 5 deacons of the Divine Hall of Judgment said that tonight is the night of the full moon. Does Big Brother know what it means? Beiting Huang asked. Everyone in the Central Continent knows that on the night of the full moon, His Highness the Night King will suffer heartache, and his personality will change drastically. He will become a demon on this night, which is also when his defense is at its lowest. In the continental competition 2 years ago, the Holy Son of the Divine Hall of Judgment even said that if he wants to kill His Highness the Night King, he will pick the night of the full moon. This is not a secret. The Holy Son of the Divine Hall of Judgment? Beiting Huang remembered this person. However, what kind of heart-wrenching pain could make a person lose their rationality? She thought of the man who had helped her several times. One day, she would become strong enough to help him remove the cancer in his body so he would not have to endure this pain every month. She wanted to obtain this information with all her heart. Now that she heard it, she could not bear to continue listening. She asked, Brother Qin, tell me about this operation. The Night King's manor should be very powerful. Why would they give orders? Qin Yu shook his head. You don't know about this. Although the Sunset Forest can't be compared to the Magical Beast Forest, there are many high-level magical beasts inside. The deeper you go, the more there are. The Night King's manor probably won't be afraid of a single magical beast. But look. Once a magical beast rampage starts tonight, even the Night King's manor won't be able to deal with it. The only way to deal with that many beasts is with numbers. At this point, Qin Yu reached out and put his arm around Beiting Huang's shoulder. He shrugged and said, Little Ninth, you can't be as reckless as you are today in the future. If it weren't for Sir Zhongzi and Sir Baize with my current strength, I wouldn't be able to save you at all. Deep self-reproach flashed across Qin Yu's eyes. He had also made up his mind. He had to work hard and become stronger so that he could protect Beiting Huang at any time and prevent her from being in danger. Sensing Qin Yu's feelings, Beiting Huang felt exceptionally warm. She held Qin Yu's hand and said, Brother Qin, I'm fine. I'll work hard to become stronger. All right, let's go together. 43 Sacred Beast Egg. Beiting Huang was dozing off in the central tent, nodding her head bit by bit. When Yan Ye came in, she suddenly woke up and jumped up from her seat. She leaped to the door in one step and looked Yan Ye up and down. He had a face that was so devilish that it could shatter the heavens and the earth. His long white hair was scattered like snow. He was wearing a luxurious black robe, and the spider lilies woven with golden threads bloomed beautifully. He was not as disheveled as Beiting Huang had imagined. If not for his pale face, Beiting Huang would have thought that the full moon disaster that everyone in the central continent knew about was just a legend. I told you I'll be fine. Yan Ye did not miss the worry in Beiting Huang's eyes. He thought to himself that this little thing still had some conscience. His bright purple eyes looked at Beiting Huang as if she was a red sun. Behind him, the 4 guards followed him in. Zhongqi, Baizi, and Beiting Huang had been together for half the night, so they were especially familiar with each other. When they saw Beiting Huang's questioning gaze, they nodded at her, indicating that it was fine. Beiting Huang heaved a sigh of relief and was led out of the tent by Yan Ye. He was here to call her out. The sun had already appeared in the sky. Other than the central tent, all the other tents had been put away and the teams had been assembled. Yan Ye held Beiting Huang and stepped into the air. He faced everyone. The wind in the sunset forest blew his hair. Behind him, the red sun gradually revealed the horizon, but it became his background. He floated in the air as he faced the group. His cold aura made him seem even more cold and heartless. He was like the commander of the 3 armies, and his might intimidated everyone. I've already received news that the holy beast has fled to the dark canyon with the egg. The 5 deacons of the divine hall of judgment were killed by the divine beast summoned by the egg. Now, the divine hall of judgment has sent 2 more inquisitors. All the organizations, forces, and individuals present here can continue if you want to accept this mission. If you want to withdraw, the reward will still be paid. Upon hearing this news, everyone who had originally guessed that the egg was only a divine beast egg was endlessly shocked. To be able to summon a divine beast to protect it, it must be a magical beast that was even stronger than a divine beast. Was that the legendary sacred beast egg? Holy beasts were equivalent to 3rd-grade professionals among human professions, and divine beasts were equivalent to 4th-grade professionals. What about sacred beasts? No one dared to imagine. If that's the case, Your Highness, our Snow Wolf mercenary group will withdraw from this mission. We didn't do anything, so the reward is waived. Qin Yu made a prompt decision. If it was a holy beast, with the Snow Wolf's strength, it might have the ability to fight. But divine beasts and sacred beasts? Forget it. Riches could only be enjoyed if they were alive. Young Master Qin Yu is indeed a young genius of the central continent. You're very sensible. Let's retreat. The leader of the Blackwater mercenary group was a middle-aged man with a long beard. His name was Huang Yuan. He cupped his hands at Beiting Huang. 9th young master, I respect you as a young hero. In my eyes, you, Beiting Huang, are the role model of the younger generation of the Beiting family. If there's a chance in the future, I want to have a drink with you. All right. Beiting Huang nodded with a smile. When several forces came to bid farewell, they did not forget to flatter Beiting Huang. Perhaps most of these forces were doing this for the sake of His Highness, the Night King. However, this continent valued martial arts. If Beiting Huang was indeed trash, even if the Night King's power was too great, these people would not be willing to lie with their eyes closed. Little Ninth, the Dark Canyon is the most dangerous place in the Sunset Forest. Why don't you not go and follow me? Qin Yu still did not forget to help Beiting Huang, who was part of the Night King's manor. No. Beiting Huang shook her head. I'm already employed by the Night King's manor, so I have to end things well. Besides, I also want to see what a divine beast looks like. 44. The strength of a 9-star sword master. The central continent was not a world she was familiar with. The previous owner had been busy saving her life all day long and had a trash body, so she rarely came into contact with it. Since Beiting Huang had decided to make a name for herself on this continent, she had to familiarize herself with it as soon as possible. Although the dark canyon was dangerous, Beiting Huang was not afraid. If there was even a shadow of fear in her heart, it would be difficult for her to reach the peak of this continent in the future. Beiting Huang knew this very well. She would never let herself be afraid. Fear was a kind of inner demon. "Don't worry, I'm here," Yanye whispered beside her. Seeing that most of the forces had been eliminated, he carried her and flew towards the sunset forest. Behind him, the 4 guards formed a rectangular square formation like a barrier, protecting Yanye's back tightly. These 4 guards were Yanye's most trusted aides. However, it was not that he did not have an opening. At this moment, Beiting Huang was in his arms. He hugged her with both hands and did not guard against her at all. This man definitely trusted her. However, Beiting Huang was not the kind of person who could not be trusted. He had given her absolute trust, and she would also trust him absolutely. In the forest that was covered in greenery, the sunlight could not cast any shadows through the layers of overlapping leaves. The towering ancient trees that could only be encircled by several people were covered in a thick layer of moss, and one could not see the sunlight all year round. A stream of blood shot over like an arrow and splashed on the moss, which quickly absorbed it. In the forest that had been formed for thousands of years, even the moss seemed to have spirituality. Bang! With a loud bang, Jiangqi, who was dozing off on the tree, opened his eyes and looked at the ground. A mammoth had fallen. In just half a day, this was already the 32nd level 9 magical beast. Jiangqi shook its head. It really did not know what kind of crazy this little fellow was. This was already the 10th day. Every day, from the first rays of dawn shining on the ground to the last rays of sunset disappearing from the horizon, she was constantly killing the entire day. Her strength had also improved. From the low-level magical beasts at the beginning to the high-level magical beasts now, she killed them like chopping vegetables. Jiangqi looked at Yanye, who was sitting leisurely on the opposite tree. Unlike the 4 of them, he would not sleep on the tree. He would stare at Beiting Huang all day long, afraid that she would make any mistakes. Sigh, poor Night King. Jiangqi did not understand the Night King's feelings. There were so many noble ladies in the capital who threw flirtatious glances at their master, but their master did not want to talk to them. However, he seemed to like a thin and weak youth. However, it seemed that this young person was indeed handsome. Yeah, look, a level 9 magical beast that's almost a spirit beast. Ha ha ha, do you think I can be considered a 9-star swordmaster? The swordmaster was a grade 2 professional. Of course, Beiting Huang was happy. Yanye nodded happily and jumped down from the tree. Beiting Huang was covered in blood, but he didn't mind. Let's go. Someone has found the egg. Oh, okay. Beiting Huang put the magic nucleus into her interspatial bracelet. She had never revealed the bracelet before, but Yanye and the others were not curious. It was not unusual for a direct descendant of the Beiting family to have an interspatial device in their hands, even if they were exiled to this remote town. Your interspatial device should be full, right? Little money grubber, do you want another one? Yanye asked. No. Beiting Huang shook her head. I'm so weak. I don't want to be robbed one day and lose my life. What are you afraid of? I'm here. Yanye's purple eyes unconsciously revealed a doting look. He did not even notice it himself. 45. Finding a sword sect teacher for her baiting. Huang had never thought of relying on Yanye forever. After this mission, she would travel the continent alone. 8 years ago, she was exiled here by the Beiting family. The place where all the descendants of the family were exiled was an insurmountable and dangerous place in the middle of the capital, where the headquarters of the family was. Luobei City was the same. It was separated from the empire by the Sunset Forest and the Magical Beast Forest. The family was not afraid that the exiled disciples would run back to their headquarters. If the exiled people had the ability, they would not be trash. People who weren't trash were useful to the family. She was especially touched by Yanye's protection, so she wouldn't reject him. When Yanye carried her and arrived with the 4 guards, it was already very lively in front of a cave in the dark canyon. The 2-winged cloud leopard was dutifully guarding the door, making it impossible to doubt that the egg should be in the cave. The 2 inquisitors from the Divine Hall of Judgment, who were dressed in white priest robes, hovered in the air. They were expressionless and looked holy. Someone from the Beiting family had also rushed over from the headquarters of the imperial capital. He was a law enforcer. When he saw Beiting Huang, he seemed to know her. He frowned fiercely and did not hide his disdain. As for the other person, when Beiting Huang saw him, she was especially surprised. He had actually helped her out of the predicament at the Sword Masters Association. He was the Star Sword Master, Kang Mu. At this moment, he was floating in the air in a samurai outfit, creating a 3-way formation with the Divine Hall of Judgment and the Beiting family. Kang Mu, you're here too? In front of outsiders, Yanye returned to his lazy and evil appearance. He greeted Kang Mu indifferently, but it was more like he was mocking Kang Mu. Your Highness, I'm only here to assist you on His Majesty's orders. Kang Mu had a warm expression on his face. When he saw Beiting Huang in Yanye's arms, he couldn't help but be stunned for a moment. He nodded and smiled. 9th young master, we meet again. Yes, Your Excellency Kang Mu. It's a pleasure to meet you. There was gratitude in Beiting Huang's eyes. After all, Beiting Huang could save a lot of effort by obtaining the recognition of a famous Star Sword Master in the Empire. That's just a piece of trash from the Beiting family. Lord Kang Mu, when did your standards become so low? The law enforcer of the Beiting family, who was hovering in the air, said sarcastically. He really didn't know why Kang Mu, a Star Sword Master's, would be willing to become enemies with the Raya Empire for the sake of a piece of trash like Beiting Huang. Trash? Kang Mu was stunned for a moment. He finally understood why Beiting Huang was humiliated in the Sword Masters Association in Luobei City. He couldn't help but shake his head. Since you think Beiting Huang trash, can you give me the 9th young master law enforcer? I still lack a talented disciple. What did you say? Beiting Jun was the law enforcer sent by Beiting family this time. Even if they couldn't get the egg, they could at least see how powerful the egg was. Why were the Night King and the Divine Hall of Judgment so determined to get it? You want to take in a piece of trash as your disciple? 9th young master may not be able to become a spirit master, but she can definitely become an outstanding sword master. I think in the eyes of Beiting Jun, she's just a good-for-nothing, right? I believe that with my guidance, it shouldn't be difficult for 9th young master to surpass me in the future, Kang Mu said. There's no need. I'll personally find a teacher from the sword sect for her. Yan Ye's interruption even caused everyone to be horrified. The sword sect? Only the sword sect has the qualifications to be the 9th young master's master? But his aura was extremely imposing, and no one could doubt his words. His dignity of a superior was on par with the heavens and the earth, and it shook everyone to the point of being stunned. 46 9-colored Nirvana fire. The 2 inquisitors of the Judgment Hall did not say a word. However, their cold and hateful eyes stared at Yanye without blinking. If looks could kill, Yanye would have probably gone through countless cycles of life and death. Beiting Huang couldn't help but wonder if what Yanye said outside the forest about the egg, summoning a divine beast to kill the 5 deacons of the Judgment Hall, was true. Ah! A blood-curdling scream was heard. Then, a spirit master's holy light shot toward the grass in front of the cave. Only then did Beiting Huang see that many people had also come to the cave. Just as the few people in the sky were arguing about the trash, Beiting Huang, the 2-winged cloud leopard attacked the people below. The target of its attack was none other than Beiting Day, who had rushed over with his son, Beiting Huang. The father and son had also come. They were really not afraid of death. The divine light of a Star Sword Master was not easy to endure. The two-winged cloud leopard let out a shrill cry, glanced at Beiting Huang, and ran into the cave. "Chase after it!" Everyone quickly followed. Yan Ye also carried Beiting Huang inside. The cave was halfway up the mountain, and the winding passage extended underground. No one knew where it ended. The further she walked, the more uneasy Beiting Huang felt. She felt like she was being summoned. Unconsciously, she tightened her grip on Yan Ye. Yan Ye thought that she was afraid, and patted her gently. "Don't be afraid. I'm here." "Yes," Beiting Huang said firmly. "Although I'm not that strong, don't worry. I'll protect you too." Yan Ye was stunned for a moment. He looked at her deeply and nodded with a smile. "Okay." The people from the Divine Hall of Judgment walked at the front, including the two inquisitors. At this moment, a red light came from the front. Outside, the light was a circle of 9-colored light. The temperature in the originally gloomy and cold cave suddenly increased. A burnt smell was followed by the sound of ghosts wailing. "Oh my God, what a huge fire!" "The 9-colored Nirvana fire! It's indeed a sacred beast. Only a sacred beast can use heavenly fire. F***CK. Ah, help!" Before he could finish speaking, the area in front of him became silent. Sensing danger, Yan Ye immediately hugged Beiting Huang tightly and stopped. The two inquisitors who were originally charging in front had already turned around and flown back. A large area of flames chased after the two of them as if they were sentient. The scorching temperature could melt everything in the world. As they moved, the fiery red color was plated with a layer of 9 colors, making them look especially demonic. It made people feel fear from the bottom of their bones. "Let's go! It's the 9-colored Nirvana flame, damn it!" At this moment, although the Divine Hall of Judgment and the Night King's manor were irreconcilable, neither of them could deal with the extremely dangerous situation. More importantly, Yan Ye was carrying Beiting Huang in his arms. He would never risk Beiting Huang's life. "Pass down my orders. The people of the Night King's manor, retreat immediately." After giving the order, he flew out with Beiting Huang in his arms. Just like they had come from, the ceiling of the cave was slightly lower, so it was not easy to use it. In addition, there was another person in Yan Ye's arms. The two inquisitors ran to the front. Behind them was the 9-colored Nirvana fire that was even hotter than the magma at the core of the earth. Beiting Huang was in Yan Ye's arms. With his body covering her, she still felt so hot that her entire body was about to melt. Yan Ye's body was very tense. From this, it could be seen that even he was not feeling good.